Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's dive into today's tale. Her name was Emma Brooks, and as she walked into the warm, elegant restaurant, the hum of conversation and the clinking of silverware filled the air. She nervously scanned the room, her heart pounding in her chest. She wasn't used to places like this. Everything felt too polished, too refined. She was out of place, wearing a second-hand dress and shoes that had seen better days. Her fingers were trembling as she checked her phone, once again confirming the table number. Table 7, she muttered under her breath. She could barely keep her nerves in check. Her friend Jenny had insisted on setting her up on this blind date, but Emma wasn't sure she was ready for it. Her life was a mess. She was struggling to make ends meet as a waitress, constantly juggling bills, and her dreams of opening an art studio felt farther away with each passing day. She had promised Jenny she would go through with it, though. She had to at least try. As she stood there, lost in her thoughts, her eyes landed on him. The man sitting alone at the back of the restaurant seemed completely at ease, scrolling through his phone, dressed in a sharp suit that made him look like he belonged in a magazine ad. This had to be him. This had to be Kevin. She took a deep breath and approached his table, trying to calm her racing heart. She plastered a smile on her face and said, "Hi. You must be Kevin. I'm Emma. Nice to meet you." The man looked up, startled. He blinked twice, clearly thrown off by her sudden appearance. Hi, Emma," he stammered, as if trying to place her in his mind. Emma misread the confusion as shyness and sat down across from him. She fidgeted with her napkin, trying to fill the awkward silence. "I know this is kind of strange. Blind dates can be weird, right? Jenny told me you might be a little shy, so I can talk enough for both of us." He opened his mouth as if to say something, but paused when his phone buzzed. "Sorry, I just got a message from work. My meeting's been canceled," he said, looking down at his phone screen. Something in Emma's voice, though, caught his attention. She was so different from the polished, calculated women he usually met. He decided to go along with it, at least for a little while, and gave her a small smile. "Yeah, blind dates are something else," he agreed, his voice soft. She smiled at him, relieved. "Tell me about it. Jenny's been trying to set me up with someone for months, but I've been too busy with work." "Oh, what do you do?" Liam asked, curious despite himself. "I'm a waitress," Emma admitted, shrugging. "It's not glamorous, but it pays most of the bills. I dream of opening my own art studio someday, though." She smiled sheepishly, not used to talking about her dreams with someone she barely knew. Liam raised an eyebrow, his interest piqued. "Art, huh? That's interesting. I work in tech. You know, coding, apps, stuff like that." "Tech? That's cool," Emma said brightly. "I'm terrible with computers, though," she added with a nervous laugh. Liam chuckled at her honesty. He was used to meeting people who wanted to impress him, who wanted to show off their success. Emma, on the other hand, wasn't pretending. There was no hidden agenda in her eyes. She was just herself. He found himself feeling something unexpected, a spark of curiosity about her. They continued talking, and for the first time in a long while, Liam found himself laughing freely, not worrying about the next business deal or the next networking opportunity. Emma's enthusiasm was contagious. Her words painted a picture of her world, a world of struggling waitresses, passionate artists, and dreams of a better future. But then, as if to remind her of the harsh realities of her life, her phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message from Jenny. "Hey Emma, where are you? I'm at table 7 looking forward to meeting you, Kevin." Emma's heart sank as she reread the text. Her face flushed red, and she looked up at Liam, her eyes wide with embarrassment. "You're not Kevin, are you?" she whispered. Liam's smile faltered, and a guilty look flashed in his eyes. "No, I'm not," he admitted. Emma's stomach churned, and she stood up quickly, gathering her coat. "I'm so sorry. I've completely messed this up. I thought you were someone else," she stammered, her cheeks burning. Liam stood up too, his expression filled with both regret and curiosity. "Emma, wait. It's okay," he said, but she was already heading for the door, her face flushed with embarrassment. He stood there for a moment, watching her leave. Something inside him stirred, something he couldn't quite explain. He had intended to correct her from the start, but now, he was wondering if he would ever see her again. And why did the thought of never seeing her again bother him so much? As Emma rushed out the door, she couldn't shake the feeling that she had just made a fool of herself. But deep down, something else lingered in her chest. Despite the awkwardness, despite the mistake, there was something about Liam that felt different. She wasn't sure if it was the way he listened or the way he made her laugh, but something told her that she might not have just messed up. She might have just stumbled into something unexpected. As Emma hurried out of the restaurant, her face flushed with embarrassment, she couldn't help but replay the awkward encounter in her mind. She had mistakenly sat at the wrong table, thinking she was meeting Kevin, only to realize that the man she had been speaking to was a complete stranger. She had never felt so foolish. She quickly checked her phone again. The text from Jenny was still there, confirming she had gone to the wrong table. "I can't believe I did that," she muttered to herself, the words almost drowned out by the noise of the bustling city streets around her. She couldn't even bring herself to look back at the restaurant. The door had swung open behind her just as she reached the sidewalk, and she could already feel the weight of the entire evening pressing down on her. But just as she thought she might walk off into the night, something unexpected happened. A few steps behind her, a voice called out, "Emma, wait." She stopped dead in her tracks, her heart pounding as she turned around. It was Liam, the man she had just made a fool of herself in front of. He was standing in the doorway of the restaurant, looking uncertain but determined. "I didn't mean to make things weird," he said, his voice hesitant, but his eyes were kind, searching hers for some sign of understanding. Emma blinked, surprised at the unexpected gesture. She had expected him to simply forget about her and let the awkward moment slide. "No, it's totally fine," Emma stammered, her nerves still on edge. I don't know what I was thinking. I shouldn't have. You shouldn't have run off like that," Liam interrupted gently, taking a step toward her. "I didn't want you to think. Well, I didn't want you to feel like you had to leave because of me." His words were soft, genuine. Emma stared at him, taken aback. She hadn't expected him to care that much. After all, they were strangers, and the evening had already gone completely wrong. Why would he even bother? "I just thought you were someone else, and I felt so embarrassed," she admitted, her voice quieter now. Liam smiled, a slight chuckle escaping his lips. "It's okay. I get it. Blind dates are, well, they're kind of tricky. But I didn't want you to feel like I was judging you or anything." Emma blinked again, confused. "What do you mean?" "I mean," Liam hesitated for a moment before continuing, "I'm not a guy who's into the usual dating game. I know I probably came off all aloof, but that wasn't my intention. I guess you could say I'm not great at this stuff." He scratched the back of his neck, looking a little embarrassed. "I just don't really know how to be. I don't know. Like everyone else, I guess." Emma studied him for a moment, her confusion deepening. Here was this guy, standing in front of her, clearly someone who had it all together on the outside. Successful, polished, confident. And yet he was admitting he wasn't good at something as simple as talking to a stranger on a date. It didn't make sense. "Well," she said, trying to break the tension, "I guess that makes two of us. I'm definitely not great at this either." She gave him a shy smile, and to her surprise, he smiled back. "Tell you what," Liam said, taking a small step closer to her. "Let's forget about the whole wrong table thing. How about we grab a coffee? No pressure. Just a chance to, actually talk." Emma hesitated for a moment, looking at him, trying to read his expression. He didn't seem like the type of person who would just let things go. Maybe he was trying to make up for the awkwardness. Or maybe, just maybe, he genuinely wanted to get to know her. After a long pause, she finally nodded. "Yeah, I think I'd like that." They walked a few blocks away from the restaurant, heading toward a small, cozy cafe that Emma frequented whenever she needed a break from work. The city lights shimmered above them, casting a warm glow on the sidewalk. The conversation was easier now, more relaxed. They talked about their jobs, their lives, their dreams. Emma learned that Liam worked in tech, managing a growing startup, though he didn't seem to enjoy talking about it much. He preferred talking about the world outside his office, the things that mattered to him. And Emma? She shared her dream of one day opening her own art studio, despite all the obstacles in her path. It was nice. It was easy. And for the first time that evening, Emma felt like she wasn't just talking to a stranger. She was talking to someone who was actually listening. I know I probably came off like a jerk earlier, Liam said as they sat down with their coffee, the tension from earlier finally dissipating. I don't mean to really. It's just that. I don't know. I've always been kind of quiet. People mistake that for arrogance sometimes. But it's not. It's just fear. Emma raised an eyebrow, surprised by his honesty. Fear. Liam nodded, looking down at his cup for a moment. Yeah. Fear of saying the wrong thing, of messing up. It's easier to just stay quiet. Emma softened, her heart beginning to understand him in a way she hadn't before. I get it, she said softly, her own insecurities suddenly feeling not so alone. I think I'm scared of messing up, too. But I guess, in the end, we're all just figuring it out, right? Liam looked up, meeting her eyes. Yeah, we're all just figuring it out. The rest of the evening passed by quickly, and Emma found herself feeling lighter than she had in days. She wasn't sure where this would go, but for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel so alone. And maybe, just maybe, this wasn't such a mistake after all. It had been a few weeks since the awkward blind date, and Emma had almost forgotten about it, or at least, tried to. Life had gotten back to its usual chaotic rhythm. She was still working at the diner, still juggling bills, still dreaming of that art studio that felt just beyond her reach. But lately, there was a small shift in her routine. After that night at the cafe with Liam, she had seen him a couple of times, but it was always in passing. He wasn't pushy, and she appreciated that. Every time they spoke, it felt like a quiet understanding, an unspoken connection. But still, neither of them had pushed it further, and Emma was okay with that. She wasn't sure what she was expecting, but she didn't want to rush into anything. Then, one afternoon, her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen and saw a text from Liam. It was simple, nothing too bold or intrusive. Hey, I was wondering if you'd be up for going to a charity gala with me next week. No pressure, just thought it might be fun. Let me know. Emma stared at the message for a long moment. A gala? She hadn't even been to something like that before, let alone considered attending with someone like Liam. She felt the old insecurities creep in. She wasn't glamorous enough. She didn't belong in that world. But at the same time, she couldn't help but feel a flicker of excitement. Liam hadn't been anything but kind to her, and maybe it would be a nice change, an opportunity to experience something new. She took a deep breath, thinking about it for a while longer. After a few minutes, she finally typed out her reply. I'd love to go. Thank you for inviting me. When the day of the gala arrived, Emma found herself standing in front of her mirror, staring at a dress she had borrowed from a friend. It was nice, nothing too fancy, but it fit well enough. Still, she felt out of place. She hadn't had a chance to really prepare for an event like this, and she was worried she would look like a fish out of water. But when she walked into the venue with Liam, something surprising happened. The anxiety she had felt all day seemed to dissipate the moment they entered. The grand ballroom, with its sparkling chandeliers and elegant decorations, seemed to soften around her. She wasn't the only one who felt out of place here, she realized. The faces were all unfamiliar, and everyone seemed to be pretending to be someone they weren't. But Liam? He seemed right at home. The way he moved through the crowd, greeting people with ease, made Emma wonder just how much she still had to learn about him. She noticed that despite his easy confidence, there was a certain vulnerability in his eyes, an openness that he didn't always show. They made their way to a corner of the ballroom, where a small group of people were gathered. Liam introduced her to a few of his colleagues, and Emma felt herself growing more comfortable. No one seemed to judge her for being a little less polished, and the conversation flowed more easily than she had expected. Liam stayed close, offering her a reassuring smile every time she felt a little out of her depth. As the night wore on, they found themselves standing at the edge of the dance floor, watching the others. Liam turned to her, his expression suddenly more serious. I know this is all a little overwhelming, he said softly, but I'm glad you're here. I've been to these things before, but they never feel the same without someone who's real, you know? Emma looked at him, surprised by the honesty in his words. She had never thought of herself as someone who could bring anything real to a high-profile event like this, but hearing him say it made her heart swell. For the first time that evening, she realized that maybe she wasn't as out of place as she had thought. The music swelled, and before Emma could say anything, Liam reached out his hand. Dance with me, he asked, a playful glint in his eyes. She hesitated for a second, then smiled, accepting. As they made their way onto the dance floor, Emma could feel the eyes of others on them. But for once, it didn't bother her. The world around her faded into the background as she focused on the man in front of her, the man who had turned out to be much more than she had ever imagined. They danced, and in that moment, it felt like time slowed down. Emma wasn't thinking about her second-hand dress or the fact that she didn't belong in this glamorous world. She was just there, with Liam, in a world that suddenly seemed much smaller and a lot more manageable. As the song came to an end, Liam looked at her, his expression soft. "You know, I used to think I had everything figured out," he said quietly. "But being with you, it's like I'm seeing everything in a whole new light." Emma's heart skipped a beat. She wasn't sure where this was going, but for the first time, she felt like she might just be exactly where she needed to be. The weeks that followed the gala seemed to blur together for Emma. Things at work were still the same: long shifts, tight tips, and the never-ending hustle to make ends meet. But something had shifted inside her. She couldn't quite pinpoint what it was, but she found herself thinking about Liam more often than she had expected. They had spent more time together since the gala, meeting for coffee or just talking about life. It was easy to be around him, and for the first time in a long time, Emma felt like she wasn't just trying to survive, but to actually live. Liam, too, had been different. He was still the quiet, reserved man she had met at the restaurant that night, but there was something else now. There was warmth in his smile that hadn't been there before, a vulnerability that Emma hadn't noticed until now. She knew he was hiding something, but she didn't press him. After all, she had her own secrets, things she wasn't ready to share either. But they were getting closer, and Emma was starting to wonder if maybe, just maybe, their connection could lead to something real. One evening, as they sat together in the small cafe they had frequented so many times before, Liam leaned forward, his eyes searching hers. "I have to tell you something," he said, his voice suddenly serious. "Something I should have said a long time ago." Emma's heart skipped a beat. She had no idea what he was about to say, but whatever it was, she could feel the weight of it. She met his gaze, trying to stay calm. "What is it?" Liam hesitated for a moment, taking a deep breath. "I've been avoiding the truth. I've been so focused on this act we've been putting on, this pretend relationship, that I didn't stop to think about what I really wanted. And what I really want is you, Emma." Her breath caught in her throat, and she could feel her face flush. She hadn't expected him to say that. Not so openly, not so directly. She had thought he might wait longer, or that things might stay casual. But here he was, laying it all on the line. "I don't want a fake marriage anymore," Liam continued, his voice steady. "I don't want a fake relationship. I want something real with you." Emma felt a rush of emotions flood her chest. She had never been one to jump into things, but she couldn't deny the truth in his words. The connection they had shared over the past few weeks wasn't based on a contract or some business deal. It was real. She could feel it in the way he looked at her, in the way he made her laugh, in the way they both shared pieces of themselves without hesitation. "I don't want to keep pretending either," Emma said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've been afraid, you know. Afraid that if I let myself get close to you, I'd just end up hurt. But I don't want to be afraid anymore." Liam's expression softened, and he reached across the table to take her hand in his. "You don't have to be afraid with me, Emma. I promise." For the first time in a long while, Emma felt like she could breathe. She didn't have to keep pretending that she had everything under control. She didn't have to hide behind her walls. In this moment, she realized that maybe, just maybe, it was okay to let someone in. To let herself be vulnerable. The days that followed were filled with quiet moments of understanding and growth. Emma and Liam spent more time together, exploring the city, talking about their dreams and fears. They laughed at the small things, and Liam showed her parts of his life that had been hidden behind the walls he had built up. They still had their own challenges, their own pasts to work through, but for the first time, they were facing those challenges together. And then, one evening, as they stood together on the rooftop of Liam's apartment building, looking out at the glittering skyline, he turned to her and smiled. "You know," he said, "this feels right. Us. It feels like it was always supposed to happen." Emma smiled back, her heart full. "Yeah," she agreed softly. "It does." Liam took her hand, his grip gentle but firm. "I want to be with you, Emma. Not because of some deal, not because it's convenient, but because I care about you. Because you make me feel something I didn't think I could feel." Emma's eyes softened, and she nodded. I care about you too, Liam. And just like that, the walls they had both been hiding behind came down. The connection they had started as something fake, something born out of necessity, had transformed into something real, something neither of them had expected. But in that moment, standing together under the stars, Emma knew that whatever came next, they would face it together. No more pretending. No more fear. Just the two of them, learning to love each other one step at a time. As the weeks passed, Emma and Liam's connection deepened, and they found themselves growing more comfortable with each other. What had started as a fake arrangement had transformed into something genuine. They no longer saw each other as two people playing a part. They were becoming something more. Liam had invited Emma to more events, and though she still sometimes felt out of place in his world, she found herself enjoying the time they spent together. There were moments when it felt easy, when the walls between them seemed to fade completely. One evening, they sat on the balcony of Liam's penthouse, looking out at the city lights that stretched for miles. It was one of those rare, quiet moments, where everything around them felt still. Emma felt the cool breeze brush against her skin, and for once, she didn't feel the weight of all the things she hadn't figured out. She felt like she belonged. Liam had a way of making her feel that way, as though she was exactly where she was supposed to be. Liam. Emma started, her voice soft, breaking the comfortable silence between them. What if we really were a couple? Like, for real, not just this, not just what we've been doing. Liam turned his head to look at her, his eyes searching hers, and for a moment, the world around them seemed to stop. There was no tension, no fear, just the quiet understanding that had grown between them. I think we already are, he said quietly, his voice steady. Emma looked at him, her heart racing slightly. But what about everything? The mess, the things I'm still figuring out. Emma, Liam said, his tone gentle. We all have our mess. I'm still figuring things out too. But the thing is, I want to do that with you. I want to figure it out with you. Because you make everything feel real. Emma smiled, a small but genuine smile, as his words settled in her heart. It felt good to hear him say that. They had both come into this with their own baggage, their own fears, but somehow, they were working through it together. And that thought made her feel like she could face anything. I've been scared, she admitted, her voice almost a whisper. Of what happens next. What if we mess this up? What if we're not enough? Liam reached over, gently taking her hand in his thumb brushing against her skin in a soft, comforting motion. I think, as long as we're honest with each other, we won't mess this up. You don't have to be perfect, Emma. None of us are. But being real with each other, that's what matters. She looked into his eyes, seeing the sincerity in them, and for the first time in a long while, she felt her fears start to dissipate. Maybe it wasn't about having all the answers or everything figured out. Maybe it was about trusting each other enough to take the next step, whatever that step might be. The evening stretched on, the two of them talking about everything and nothing, as the city lights twinkled in the distance. But as the night wore on, Emma couldn't help but think that this was what she had been waiting for. She wasn't alone anymore. She wasn't pretending to be someone she wasn't. With Liam, she had found a place to be herself, and for the first time in a long time, she felt at peace with that. A few days later, Liam took Emma to a small art gallery he had heard about, a place she had always wanted to visit but never had the chance to. It was a quiet, intimate space filled with beautiful paintings, and as they walked through the rooms, Emma felt a sense of calm wash over her. She could feel Liam's presence beside her, his quiet support, as they shared their thoughts on each piece. At the end of the tour, Liam turned to her with a smile. I wanted to bring you here because I know how much art means to you. I think it's important for you to keep pursuing it, no matter what. Emma was taken aback. She hadn't expected him to be so thoughtful, so in tune with her dreams. You really think I could? She asked softly, not sure if she believed in herself enough to take the plunge. I know you can, Liam said, his voice full of conviction. I believe in you. I always have. In that moment, Emma realized something. It wasn't just Liam's support that had made her feel stronger. It was her own belief in herself, something that had been sparked by their time together. She wasn't alone in this anymore. She had someone who truly saw her, someone who wanted the best for her. The rest of the day was filled with more laughter, more shared moments. And as they walked out of the gallery hand in hand, Emma knew that they had reached a turning point. The past few months had been a journey, one that had started with a mistake, a misunderstanding, but had evolved into something beautiful. And whatever came next, she was ready to face it, because she knew she wasn't facing it alone. Liam had given her more than just his time. He had given her the courage to believe in herself again. And for that, she would always be grateful. As the days passed, Emma found herself growing more and more comfortable in her new life with Liam. She was no longer just surviving. She was truly living. Every day brought new experiences, new moments of connection, and a growing understanding of who she was and what she wanted. Liam had been her rock, supporting her in ways she never expected, and now she could see a future with him in it. A future that was real, and not just some dream she kept tucked away. One Saturday morning, as the sun streamed through the windows of Liam's apartment, Emma sat at the kitchen table, sipping her coffee. She had a sketchbook open in front of her, the first time she had really let herself draw in weeks. The pages were filled with new ideas, a mix of abstract shapes and bright colors, things she had never dared to try before. It was freeing, and for the first time in a long while, she felt like she was on the right path. Liam entered the room, his usual calm presence filling the space. He smiled when he saw her drawing. "You know, I've been meaning to ask you," he said, leaning against the doorframe. "Have you thought more about that art studio you've always dreamed of?" Emma looked up, surprised by the question. I don't know," she admitted. "I mean, I've been so focused on just getting by, I haven't really had the chance to think about it in a while." Liam crossed the room and sat down across from her. "I think you should," he said seriously. "You have something special. I've seen it every time you talk about art. You've got the talent. You just need the chance." Emma's heart fluttered at his words. She had always dreamed of opening an art studio, a place where she could express herself fully, without the constraints of a job that didn't make her happy. But fear had always held her back. The fear of failure. The fear of not being enough. "I'm just scared," she confessed, her voice small. "What if it doesn't work out? What if I'm not good enough? I've never really had the opportunity to go for something this big before." Liam reached out and took her hand, his touch warm and reassuring. "Emma, you are good enough. You're more than good enough. You've been working so hard for so long, just trying to survive. Don't you think it's time you start living for yourself? I want to see you chase this dream, and I believe you can make it happen." Her chest tightened at his words, the weight of her doubts suddenly feeling lighter. She had spent so many years hiding her dreams, afraid of failure, but maybe, just maybe, it was time to stop running from them. Liam was right. She had talent. She had passion, and with his support, maybe she could turn that dream into a reality. "I'll think about it," she said, her voice more confident than it had been. In a long time. Liam smiled, his eyes full of pride. "That's all I'm asking. Just think about it. And remember, I'm here for you, no matter what." The next few days were a whirlwind. Emma spent hours working on new sketches, letting her creativity flow without restriction. She started researching how to open her own art studio, looking into potential locations, and even considering what kind of classes she would offer. The idea of it all still felt surreal, but for the first time, Emma felt like it was possible. She wasn't doing it alone. One evening, as Liam and Emma sat together on the couch, sharing a quiet dinner, he turned to her with a thoughtful expression. "You know, I've been thinking," he began. "I don't want to just support you in your dreams. I want to be part of them. What if we open the studio together?" Emma blinked, taken aback. "You mean, you would—" "Yeah," Liam interrupted, his smile warm. "I've seen how much this means to you. And I've seen how much you've grown. I think we could make this work. Together." The idea of Liam being a part of this, of them working side by side to build something meaningful, filled Emma with a sense of warmth and hope. She had never imagined her dream coming true this way, with someone by her side, believing in her as much as she had begun to believe in herself. "I don't know what to say," she whispered, her heart swelling with emotion. "You don't have to say anything," Liam replied, squeezing her hand gently. "Just know that I'm with you, every step of the way." And in that moment, Emma realized that this was more than just a partnership. It was a commitment, one that would change both of their lives. They weren't just building a business, they were building a life together. One filled with trust, support, and the kind of love that Emma had never thought possible. As they sat there, hand in hand, Emma felt a deep sense of gratitude wash over her. She had come so far from that nervous waitress who had sat down at the wrong table weeks ago. And now, She was ready to take the leap. She was ready to pursue her dreams, with Liam by her side, and with a love that was more real than she had ever imagined. As the weeks passed, Emma and Liam threw themselves into the idea of opening the art studio. What had started as a far-off dream in Emma's mind now felt within reach. They spent countless hours planning, brainstorming, and visiting potential locations. Liam had always been the practical one, keeping them grounded, while Emma fueled their vision with her creativity and passion. Slowly but surely, they began to build something real, something that was theirs. The idea of the studio evolved from a simple space to a community center for artists, somewhere people could learn, create, and share their work. Emma had never imagined that this dream could grow into something bigger than just her own aspirations. But with Liam's encouragement and support, she saw how much impact it could have. One afternoon, as they sat in a quiet cafe, sipping their coffee and discussing the latest plans for the studio, Emma looked at Liam with a thoughtful expression. "You know," she said softly, "I still can't believe we're doing this. I used to think a dream like this was just impossible." Liam smiled, reaching for her hand across the table. "You've always had the talent, Emma. You just needed to believe in yourself. And now you're doing it." Emma's heart swelled at his words. She had come so far, from that nervous, unsure woman to someone who was about to take a huge leap. But the leap wasn't just about opening the studio. It was about trusting herself, trusting Liam, and trusting their future together. They had started as strangers, brought together by a mistake, a misunderstanding. Now, they were partners, both in business and in life. Every decision they made was about more than just the studio. It was about their shared future, their growth, and the love they had found in each other. One evening, as they walked through the empty space that would soon become their studio, Emma stopped and looked around, her voice barely above a whisper. "This is really happening, isn't it?" Liam nodded, his eyes full of warmth. "Yeah, it is. And I'm proud of you. Proud of us." They stood there for a moment, taking it all in, the walls that had once been bare, now filled with potential. They were building something together, from the ground up, and Emma couldn't imagine doing it with anyone else. As they made their way back to Liam's apartment, Emma couldn't help but reflect on how much had changed in such a short time. Just a few months ago, she had been a woman working multiple jobs, unsure of her future, questioning her worth. Now, she was standing at the edge of something incredible, something that was hers, something she had built with Liam. The fear that had once held her back had faded, replaced by a quiet confidence that came from knowing she was capable of more than she had ever imagined. Liam, too, had changed. His once reserved nature had softened, and Emma saw a man who was no longer afraid to let people in, to trust in the future. He had always believed in her, but now she saw that he believed in them as a couple, as partners in every sense of the word. One evening, as they sat together, planning the grand opening of the studio, Emma looked at Liam and smiled. "I don't think I could have done this without you. Without your belief in me. In us." Liam reached out and brushed a lock of hair from her face, his touch gentle. "You didn't need me to do it, Emma. But I'm glad I could be here. I'm glad we're doing this together." Their eyes met, and in that moment, it felt like everything had come full circle. The journey that had started with a misunderstanding, with two people who thought they were nothing alike, had turned into something beautiful. They had found something real, something that went beyond business plans and contracts. They had found each other. As they held hands, looking out at the city that had witnessed their journey, Emma knew that this was just the beginning. There was still so much to do, so many obstacles to overcome. But as long as they had each other, she knew they could face anything. Together, the grand opening of the art studio was just around the corner, and Emma could hardly believe how far they had come. The space was finally ready, bright, inviting, and full of life, just like the vision she had held for so long. As she stood in the middle of the room, looking around at the walls adorned with paintings and sculptures, she couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. It was her dream, brought to life with Liam by her side. The fear that once held her back seemed so far away now, replaced by a quiet confidence that only grew stronger each day. Liam had been there every step of the way, not just as her partner in the studio, but as her partner in life. Together, they had created something beautiful, a space where people could come, create, and find inspiration. A space that was now ready to open its doors to the world. "Are you nervous?" Liam asked, stepping into the room with a grin, breaking her from her thoughts. Emma smiled and shook her head, though the fluttering in her chest told a different story. I think I'm more excited than nervous, she said. I can't believe this is actually happening. We did it, Liam. It's real. Liam walked over to her and took her hand, his touch steady and reassuring. We did it together, he said softly, his eyes meeting hers. I'm so proud of you, Emma. You've worked so hard for this. Emma's heart swelled at his words. She had come so far, from the woman who had once doubted herself, to the one standing here in the middle of the studio, ready to share her passion with the world. It had been a long journey, but it had been worth it. And none of it would have been possible without Liam. I couldn't have done it without you, Emma said, her voice soft but filled with gratitude. You believed in me from the start, and that's what kept me going. Thank you for that. Liam smiled and gave her hand a gentle squeeze. You didn't need me to believe in you, Emma. You just needed to believe in yourself. She looked up at him, her heart full. I do now, she whispered. I really do. As the day of the opening arrived, Emma found herself standing at the door, looking out at the crowd that had gathered outside. The excitement in the air was palpable, and she could see the curious faces, the eager artists, the people who had come to support her and Liam. She felt a rush of gratitude and love for all the people who had made this day possible. Liam stood beside her, his presence grounding her. You ready? He asked, his voice steady but with a hint of excitement. Emma took a deep breath and smiled. I'm ready. The doors opened, and the first guests began to enter. The energy in the studio was electric, the air buzzing with the excitement of new beginnings. Emma and Liam moved through the crowd, greeting people, sharing their vision for the space, and offering a warm welcome to each new face. There was laughter, conversation, and an overwhelming sense of community. The studio wasn't just a business. It was a place where people could come together, share their work, and find inspiration. Emma could already feel the magic of the place beginning to take shape. As the evening wore on, Emma found herself standing by the windows, looking out at the city. Liam came up beside her, standing quietly for a moment before speaking. I told you it would be worth it, he said softly, his voice filled with contentment. Emma smiled, turning to him. You were right. This is everything I've ever wanted. And more. Liam took her hand in his grip firm and sure. And it's just the beginning. Together, we can do anything. In that moment, Emma realized just how true his words were. The future was wide open, full of endless possibilities. And no matter what challenges they would face, she knew they would face them together. With Liam by her side, she was ready to take on whatever came next. As the night drew to a close, Emma and Liam stood together, looking out at the studio that had become the heart of their shared dreams. The world outside seemed far away, but inside, there was a warmth that radiated from the people, the art, and from the connection they had built. And for the first time, Emma felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be. As the months went by, the art studio continued to flourish, and so did Emma and Liam's relationship. The space had become a hub of creativity, a place where artists and dreamers could come together to share their work and find inspiration. It wasn't just a business anymore. It was a community, and Emma couldn't have been prouder of what they had built together. The fear and uncertainty that once held her back had long faded, replaced by a deep sense of fulfillment. She had found her purpose, her voice, and most importantly, she had found someone who believed in her, someone who had been with her every step of the way. But even as the studio grew and life continued to move forward, Emma couldn't help but feel that there was something more she wanted. She had spent so many years focused on survival, on getting by, that she hadn't stopped to think about the deeper connection she shared with Liam. They had started their journey together out of a mutual understanding, but now, as they stood side by side, Emma realized that they had built something far greater than a business. They had built a life together. One quiet evening, as the sun set behind the city skyline, Emma and Liam sat on the balcony of their apartment, sipping wine and enjoying the peaceful moment. The studio had closed for the night, and they had just finished a long day of meetings and planning. Liam turned to her, his gaze soft and serious. You know, Emma, he began, his voice low. I've been thinking about everything we've been through, everything we've built. He paused for a moment, as if gathering his thoughts. And I can't imagine doing it with anyone else. I don't want to just run a business with you. I want to build a future with you. Emma's heart skipped a beat as she turned to face him, her eyes searching his. She had always known there was something special about their connection, but hearing him say it out loud made everything feel so much more real. "I feel the same way," she said softly, her voice filled with emotion. What we have, this is real. And it's more than I ever could have imagined." Liam smiled, his eyes warm with affection. "I love you, Emma," he said simply. Emma's breath caught in her throat. She had always been afraid of letting herself be vulnerable, of trusting someone with her heart. But in this moment, she realized that love wasn't something to be afraid of. It was the very thing that had brought them together, that had allowed them to build this life they had now. "I love you too, Liam," she whispered, her voice filled with conviction. They sat there for a moment, letting the weight of those words sink in. The city lights twinkled in the distance, and the world around them felt perfectly still. In that moment, Emma realized that she had found her home, not in the studio, not in the success they had achieved, but in Liam. With him, she had everything she had ever wanted. As the days passed, their relationship deepened. They continued to work together, supporting each other through the highs and lows of running the studio. But their bond went beyond business. They made time for each other, for their love, and for the life they were creating together. They laughed, they dreamed, and they built a future that was filled with possibility. One day, as they were walking through the studio, Liam stopped in front of one of the paintings on the wall. It was a piece Emma had created when they first started the studio, a representation of her journey, of the struggles and triumphs she had faced along the way. Liam turned to her, his expression soft. "You've come so far, Emma," he said, his voice filled with pride. "We've come so far." Emma looked at the painting, her heart swelling with gratitude. "We have," she agreed, her voice barely above a whisper. "And I'm so grateful for every step of this journey." Liam took her hand, his fingers interlacing with hers. "I'm just getting started with you," he said, his voice filled with hope for the future. As they stood there, side by side, looking at the painting that symbolized their journey together, Emma realized that this was just the beginning. There would be challenges ahead, no doubt. But with Liam by her side, she knew they could face anything. Together, they had built something beautiful, something real, and their future was as bright as the city lights that shone through the windows. In that moment, Emma knew that everything she had been searching for had already found her. It wasn't fame, fortune, or success that mattered. It was the love they shared, the partnership they had built, and the life they were continuing to create. And with that, Emma smiled, knowing that no matter what the future held, they would face it together.